The truth has been in front of you since you first were born. The Daedra are the true gods of this universe.
In the grand, turning kalpa of Tamriel's history, some figures are but footnotes, while others, I believe, are the ink itself, staining every page that comes after. Mankar Camoran, to me, is not merely a villain. He is a question that still hangs in the air, a discordant note in the song of creation that, once heard, can never be forgotten. His is a legacy written in fire and blood, yes, but also in the terrifying clarity of a madman's vision, a vision so potent it nearly unmade the world. And in the quiet moments, I still find myself tracing the edges of his glorious, awful dream. Now, if we are to truly grasp the shadow he cast, I feel we must start at the beginning, or what little of it the lore grants us. It is my belief that, like so many vital truths in the Elder Scrolls, Mankar's origins are deliberately shrouded in mystery. It seems no surprise to me that the truth is so obscured. What I can piece together is that Mankar himself laid claim to the blood of the Camoran dynasty, a line I see woven into the very roots of Valenwood, the ancient home of the Bosmer. The Camoran line, as I understand it, reaches back to the legendary King Altmer, the chieftain who somehow united the wild forest tribes, forging the very soul of Valenwood. For me, this unification wasn't just a political act. It was the moment the untamed Bosmer stepped onto Tamriel's stage as a unified people, marking the start of the First Era, Year Zero. I've always considered King Altmer's feat to be one of the most stunning military and political achievements in all of Tamriel's history. Even as the Alessian Empire steamrolled the continent, I'm fascinated by how the Camoran dynasty clung to its power, surviving centuries of war, disease, and scheming. Of course, Valenwood eventually buckled under the Second Empire and was ravaged by the Thracian Plague. But to me, the Camoran's survival is what matters, even as their power dwindled and was carved up by local nobles. But I believe a line like the Camoran's never truly fades. After the Second Empire fell, they tried to reclaim Valenwood only to be bogged down by what I see as endless infighting and cultural battles. Valenwood did manage to reunite under Camoran rule twice within the Altmer dominions, but it's my opinion that rebellion and constant Altmer interference, especially during Eradan Camoran's reign, kept true power forever out of their hands. By the Second Era, the Camorans were still a force, but one I perceive as perpetually clashing with rivals, rebels, and the eternally meddling Altmer. And here is what I find most astonishing. The Camorans might just be the longest ruling dynasty in Tamrielic history, their name echoing from the dawn of the First Era to at least 3E 267. It seems to me that whenever their succession was in doubt, chaos was sure to follow. In the Third Era, I see this chaos manifest in a savage civil war between Camoran Kaltos and the notorious Haemon Camoran, better known as the Camoran usurper. This conflict plunged the West into nearly 2 decades of horror, ending only when a desperate alliance of Breton lords finally defeated the usurper at the Battle of Firewaves. This is where the story, for me, becomes a chilling prophecy. An in-game account, The Refugee, tells of refugees flooding into Dwynnen during the war, and among them, a terrified Bosmer woman named Kalis who kept crying out a name no one knew, Mankar. A wounded scout named Orban, who knew her, claimed she was once the usurper's lover. In the ensuing chaos, Kalis vanished, but not before healers discovered she had given birth to a son. I mean, just think about it. Mankar's very entry into the world was announced in screams and secrets, as if destiny, or something far darker, was already pulling the strings. I have to wonder, why was Kalis so terrified for her son before he was even born? Did she have a vision? Is it possible Mehrunes Dagon himself planted a prophetic seed? Or was it some divine warning from the Aedra that has been lost to time? We'll never know, but I can't shake the feeling that Mankar's path was carved in stone from the moment of his birth. From there, the trail goes cold. The next thing I can gather is that Mankar and his mother disappeared into the wilds of High Rock. It's my belief that as Mankar grew, he was drawn to the worship of Mehrunes Dagon, who, as the legends tell it, handpicked him as a mortal champion and bestowed upon him the ultimate forbidden gift, the Mysterium Xarxes. I think Mankar's obsession with the Xarxes drove him to unparalleled metaphysical heights, and eventually, he penned his own gospel of madness, the infamous Commentaries on the Mysterium Xarxes, which became sacred to Daedric cultists across Tamriel. Somewhere in all this, he fathered 2 children, Ruma and Raven, their births, in my opinion, being just as wrapped in riddles as his own. So that, to me, is the Camoran legacy. Centuries of shadowy power and violent infighting, all culminating in a boy I see as born of terror and prophecy, Mankar Camoran, the very man who would one day drag Tamriel into its bleakest hour. But before we go any deeper, I feel we have to confront one of Mankar's own secrets, because, for me, his identity is a riddle that has left even the most seasoned lore scholars scratching their heads. Let's be honest for a moment. What even is Mankar's lineage? Is he Bosmer, Eilid, or Altmer? Or, as I suspect, is he something else entirely? The game never gives a straight answer, and in a world where I know bloodlines shape destinies, you'd think it would be perfectly clear. In Oblivion, he certainly looks like an Altmer, a golden, towering high elf. But if we follow the history of Valenwood, it's my firm belief he should be a Bosmer. His family, after all, is the Camoran Dynasty, the ancient kings of the Wood Elves. So why, I ask, does he look like a high elf? The official game files only deepen the mystery, listing his race as Altmer. Well, it seems to me that Mankar Camoran wasn't satisfied with the body he was born with. If you're as obsessed as he was with lost elven glory, with Eilid ruins and ancient magic, then I suppose it makes a twisted sort of sense to remake yourself in the image of that so-called superior lineage. You make yourself a bit taller, a bit more golden, and suddenly you're strutting around as the ultimate elf. How did he do it? The answer lies with Mehrunes' razor. I believe this Daedric artifact is more than a simple assassin's tool. Its power, according to the deepest lore, is limited only by the ambition of its wielder. If you have the knowledge, and say, a copy of the Mysterium Xarxes, I believe there's almost nothing you can't change about yourself. Want to rewrite your own fate? Want to change your very Nymic, your secret, true name in the universe? It seems all you need is a ritual, some eldritch verse, maybe a few sacrificial virgins, and there you have it, a new you. I wouldn't recommend trying that at home, but for Mankar, I don't think this was just a theory. I firmly believe he used Mehrunes' razor and the Xarxes' teachings to literally cut and splice his own Nymic, reshaping his identity, his destiny, and yes, even his race. That, in my opinion, is how a Bosmer could become an Altmer, and, as some even claim, take a step closer to the title of Dragonborn. But we'll get to that wild theory soon enough. So, what exactly is a Nymic, and why do I think it's so critical to Mankar Camoran's story? Let's take a closer look and unravel what I believe it means to rewrite your own existence in the Elder Scrolls. Alright, let me try to break this down for you. What in the world is a Nymic? And what about proto-Nymics and neo-Nymics? If your head is already spinning, trust me, you're not alone. The entire concept is magnificently wild, but I believe it's one of the deepest, most fascinating pieces of metaphysics in the Elder Scrolls. In the simplest terms I can offer, a Nymic is a being's true name. In the magic of the Elder Scrolls, especially concerning the Daedra, I understand a Nymic isn't just a label, it's the fundamental spell or formula that defines your entire being. For a Daedra, this name is everything. They are utterly bound by it. They can never change it or escape it. Even if you vaporize their physical form, their Nymic endures in the chaos of oblivion, waiting for them to reform in the exact shape their name dictates. This, I believe, is why the Daedra are so terrified of anyone learning their Nymic. If an enemy gets a hold of it, they could control the Daedra, banish them, or even warp their very essence. It's what I'd call the ultimate power move, like having the admin password to someone's soul. The Daedra will go to absurd lengths to hide their true names, and if anyone dares write one down, they will move heaven and earth to hunt that knowledge down and destroy it. Now, in the world of Nymics, I see a clear hierarchy. Most Daedra have a single, simple Nymic, but the stronger and more intelligent ones have layers. There's a proto-Nymic, the original name, a neo-Nymic, the new name, and sometimes even more, like tribunimics or hieronymics, which I understand are tied to rank or allegiance. You can think of it like complex passwords for added security. The more intricate the Nymic, the harder it is to control or banish that Daedra. For mortal mages, I'm told that to summon or banish a Daedra, you usually need to know every layer of its Nymic. The protonymic might just get its attention or let you poke at its basic nature, but if you truly want to control it or kick it back to oblivion, you need the neonymic as well. Some Daedra are so complex that I think only the most powerful sorcerers could even dream of challenging them. As the great Dvaithfur, one of Tamriel's greatest sorcerers, in my opinion, wrote in his treatise on the nature of Nymic. With the right sort of magic, you can edit the pattern. Alter the Nymic and you alter the Daedra defined by it. In other words, if you know a Daedra's full Nymic and have the skill, I believe you can literally rewrite their code. You could make them serve you, change their nature, anchor them to objects, or just dissipate them entirely. Of course, the stronger the Daedra, the harder this becomes, and the more fiercely they guard their names. It's no wonder to me that they're so paranoid. So when we talk about Mankar Camoran editing his Nymic, using Mehrunes' razor and the Mysterium Xarxes, I want you to understand that we're talking about a mortal hacking his own soul, rewriting his essence, and reshaping his own destiny. To me, it's the metaphysical equivalent of typing console commands into the universe's source code. If all this sounds vaguely familiar, it's because I think the idea of a true name has deep roots in our own real-world traditions. For instance, in old Jewish folklore, if a family lost several children, the next child might be left unnamed or called Alter, meaning old, so that the angel of death wouldn't know their true name and couldn't claim them. Only later, when the child was ready for marriage, would they be given a proper name, often one from a family patriarch, in hopes of carrying on their luck and legacy. So the next time you hear someone mention Nymics, I want you to remember it's more than just a cool word. In the Elder Scrolls, I believe it's the ultimate key to power, identity, and sometimes even survival. Now that I've laid out my understanding of Nymics and the wild potential they hold, let's step into the realm of pure speculation, because when it comes to Mankar Camoran's children, I find things get profoundly weird. We know Mankar has 2 children, Ruma and Raven, but who they truly are and how they connect to Mankar is something I see as deliberately obscured by layers of metaphor and mystery. The commentaries on the Mysterium Xarxes, along with other scattered hints, only make things stranger and, for me, more intriguing. During my own research, I came across a theory that absolutely captured my imagination. Unfortunately, the original poster's account was deleted, so I can't give them proper credit, but I believe the core idea is too brilliant to ignore. Here's the gist of it as I see it. Throughout his commentaries, Mankar speaks of a mother, a metaphysical entity that I interpret as maybe fate, or perhaps something more personal. He hints that by breaking down your own Nymic, your true name, you can remake yourself and seize power over your own destiny. It's a theme that I notice he comes back to again and again. Here's a direct quote from the commentaries that I find particularly revealing.
Greetings, novitiate, and know first a reassurance. Mankar Camoran was once like you, asleep, unwise, protonymics. We mortals leave the dreaming sleeve of birth the same, unmantled save for the symbiosis with our mothers, until finally we might through new eyes leave our hearths without need or fear that she remains behind. In this moment, we destroy her forever and enter the demesne of Lord Dagon. Thus shall you return to your first primal whale, and yet come out different. It shall this time be neonymbiosis, master akin to master, whose mother is miasma. He that enters paradise enters his own mother. Almaruma.
That last phrase, Almaruma, is what I find most fascinating. It could be in Elnofex, the ancient language of the Elder Scrolls, and some fans, myself included, believe it translates to Ruma is the mother. This interpretation aligns perfectly for me with the Latin phrase alma mater, which literally means nourishing mother. And within the lore itself, the word Alma is tied to figures like Almalexia, the mother of Morrowind, and even Empress Alessia, whose title in Aldmeri becomes Alma Par Essi, or Mother of Men. So in my view, the word Alma is heavily loaded with maternal symbolism. Now, according to some notes from Michael Kirkbride, one of the key writers for Morrowind and Oblivion, Ruma apparently gave birth to herself, and to her brother, Raven, though he is not her son. This, to me, perfectly matches the idea that by entering paradise and remaking yourself, you become your own parent. It's peak Elder Scrolls metaphysics, and I absolutely love it. But what makes me think Ruma is the original among the Camorans? Well, I believe Mankar's own words hint at it.
My first daughter ran from the Dagonite road. Her name was Ruma, and I ate her with no bread, and made another, which learns, and I loved that one. And blackbirds formed her twin behind all time.
So, as I interpret it, Ruma represents the part of Mankar that held onto his original self. Perhaps she ran from the path of destruction. Maybe, to fully transform, Mankar had to metaphorically eat or cut away that part of himself which then became the entity known as Ruma. The blackbirds that followed seemed to represent Raven. In my reading, Ruma, Mankar, and Raven are three aspects that were split from a single original being, all through the powerful manipulation of their shared Nymic. So, Alma Ruma, to me, means, at least on one level, Ruma is the mother, or the mother is Ruma. In a very real sense, I believe Ruma is the origin, the very matrix from which the new Camoran sprang. Is this theory canon? Not exactly, at least, it's not confirmed. But for me, it aligns beautifully with the tangled, symbolic nature of the lore and adds another layer of profound strangeness to Mankar Camoran's twisted legacy. I don't know if this theory will ever matter to the wider story, but it's definitely a trip I think is worth taking. Anyway, I feel we should wind back to Mankar's early years and try to fill in some gaps, at least as much as the legends allow. After all the chaos around his birth, it seems to me Cal is vanished from history. Did she raise Mankar in secret, teaching him ancient magic? Or did she abandon him where he was born and just disappear? The records are conflicting, and as for the infamous Camoran usurper, Haemon, I have to wonder, did he ever know he had a son? Honestly, I think probably not. But with Elder Scrolls lore, I'm always comfortable dwelling in the land of speculation. What I do know is that Mankar Camoran emerged from this tangled web of Bosmer history and Daedric whispers. Most sources I've seen tie him to the Camoran family of Valenwood. But there's a persistent legend that I find fascinating, that Haemon Camoran was actually the son of Molag Bal and a Breton woman. If that's true, then it means the usurper wasn't a Bosmer at all, but a Breton and, more intriguingly to me, possibly a Demiprince. When I combine that with Haemon's own connections to Daedric princes and his alleged lichdom, I can only imagine Mankar's childhood was far from a storybook tale. It's no wonder to me that he grew up with an obsession for the Daedra and the realms of Oblivion. Sadly, the really juicy details about Mankar's radicalization, the strange and wild path that turned him into the architect of the Mythic Dawn, are, in my opinion, mostly lost to history. But I believe at some point in his youth, he fell headfirst into Daedric worship, drawn particularly to the Prince of Destruction, Mehrunes Dagon. And this, for me, is where the story truly ignites. Whether by cunning, fate, or just sheer luck, Mankar caught Dagon's eye and was chosen to receive the Mysterium Xarxes, a book I see as so infused with Daedric power it practically drips with malice. Written by Mehrunes Dagon himself, I believe the Xarxes is a relic that warps minds, overflows with prophecies and riddles, and is so dangerous that even getting near it requires serious magical defenses. If you're wondering why Mankar ended up so unhinged, well, I'd ask you to imagine reading a book that literally rearranges your soul. The influence of the Xarxes clearly took hold. Mankar became obsessed, in my view, poring over its forbidden verses and cosmic truths. Whether it was inspiration or corruption, or both, I think it led him to compose his own magnum opus, the Commentaries on the Mysterium Xarxes. These texts would become the holy scripture of the Mythic Dawn, and I see them as filled with Mankar's visions, dogma and enough esoteric ramblings to attract followers by the score. But I think there's more. The Xarxes didn't just shatter his sanity, it opened doors. With its power, I believe Mankar learned how to tear open a portal to oblivion itself, carving out his very own pocket realm, Gyar, a paradise floating in a sea of chaos. Here, he established the Mythic Dawn's headquarters, a sanctuary for his cult and a throne for himself, far from the prying eyes of Tamriel. And that, my friends, is how I believe Mankar Camoran went from an obscure royal bastard to a Daedric messiah, armed with a book of madness, a realm of his own, and a vision that would shake an empire to its very foundations. Gyar, or Paradise as it's better known, was, in my opinion, Mankar Camoran's personal masterpiece. It was a pocket realm he carved directly into the chaos of oblivion, conjured with the forbidden secrets I believe he found in the Mysterium Xarxes. Using the Xarxes as both his key and his blueprint, I see Camoran as having shaped this dimension to be a perfect reflection of his warped vision, a paradise for himself and, supposedly, a reward for his most devoted followers. But let's not delude ourselves. I think despite its serene name, his paradise was anything but a peaceful Eden for the cultists who followed him. For Mankar and his children, I see it as a throne and a sanctuary, but for everyone else, it was a nightmare in disguise, what I can only describe as a brutal training ground masquerading as bliss. At the heart of this paradise, I picture Gyar, Mankar's palace, built in that hauntingly beautiful Eyelid style that once defined ancient Cyrodiil. Here, it's my belief Camoran held court as the self-proclaimed herald of a new age, with the realm itself anchored, literally, by his own will. I want you to think of Mankar as the living sigil stone, the very thing that kept the entire dimension stable within the shifting tides of oblivion. But here's what I see as the cruel joke. Paradise was never meant to be the final reward. It was more like a crucible, a twisted boot camp for the Mythic Dawn. I believe Camoran thought that after Dagon torched Nirn and reset the world through destruction, the Mythic Dawn would rise as the new ruling class. But to rule a reborn world, he felt they had to be forged in fire to become strong, ruthless, and purged of all the weaknesses of the old world. So what did Paradise offer his followers? In my view, it was endless trials, cycles of death and rebirth, suffering and survival, all designed to strip away their weakness. For the faithful, it was less heaven and more purgatory, as I see it. The true Paradise wasn't this pocket realm at all. It was the new Nirn, the promised land he saw waiting on the other side of the apocalypse. In the end, I believe Gyar was less a paradise than a horrifying test. It was a proving ground where only the most devoted, or perhaps the most broken, could ever hope to survive long enough to earn a seat in Camoran's imagined Utopia, the origins of the Mythic Dawn cult, like so much of Tamriel's history, are something I see as cloaked in rumor and shadow. Most scholars I've read trace their emergence to the final days of the Second Era, when Tiber Septim's conquests were fundamentally reshaping the world. Yet I believe it was centuries later, under the charismatic and utterly unhinged Mankar Camoran, that the cult would make its most infamous mark on history. Their masterstroke, as I see it, was the brazen assassination of Emperor Uriel Septim II and all his heirs in 3E 433, an act that single-handedly triggered the Oblivion Crisis and unleashed Daedric terror across Tamriel. With Mankar at the helm and his children, Raven and Ruma, serving as his trusted lieutenants, I believe the Mythic Dawn embedded itself throughout the Empire. They operated from the shadows, planting sleeper agents in every city, all while their secret shrine to Mehrunes Dagon lay hidden deep within Lake Arius caverns. When the dust finally settled and the gates of oblivion were slammed shut, I imagine Tamriel was left reeling. Survivors and vigilantes swore an oath to hunt down every last vestige of the cult. One such group, a militia in Skyrim, managed to seize the infamous Daedric artifact, Mehrunes' Razor, and, fearing its power, they shattered it into 3 pieces. Each fragment, I'm told, was entrusted to a guardian, their solemn duty passed down through generations. Fast forward to the 4th Era. In 4E 101, amidst the chaos of the Stormcloak Rebellion, I find it fascinating that the town of Dawnstar became home to a new curiosity, the Mythic Dawn Museum, curated by none other than Silas Vesuvius, himself a descendant of the original cultists. Determined to reclaim what he saw as his family's legacy, Silas enlisted the help of the last Dragonborn to recover the razor's scattered shards, ultimately restoring the blade to its full, deadly glory. But I never believed the Mythic Dawn was truly finished. Around the same time, a new chapter of the cult was quietly forming in the Velothi Mountains, deep within Red Scar Cavern, the site of an ancient, long-forgotten temple. Their new leader, High Priest Vonos, claimed he was guided by visions sent directly from Mehrunes Dagon. Driven by what I can only call a mix of prophecy and desperation, Vonos unearthed the ruined remains of an Oblivion Gate, its presence a grim reminder to me that the barriers between worlds were still dangerously thin. I believe Vonos rallied a new generation of cultists, all of them clinging to the dream of reopening the jaws of Oblivion. And after years of searching, their efforts bore fruit. Yet Vonos' visions began to change. He saw not only Dagon's promise, but also warnings of Akatosh and the rise of the last Dragonborn, an echo of an ancient prophecy. Vonos, who I see as ever the schemer, concocted a plan to ensnare the Dragonborn in Dagon's plot by luring the hero into a confrontation with the Great Wellkind Stone in one hand and a Daedric weapon in the other. He cleverly tricked the Dragonborn into striking the final blow, using that moment of power to corrupt the stone and wrench open an Oblivion Gate. On the other side, I'm told, waited the Dremora Valkynas, Gitanas, and Methats, ready to spearhead a new invasion. But it seems to me that history repeated itself. The last Dragonborn stormed through that portal and brought down the Dremora before they could set Tamriel ablaze once more. Meanwhile, the vigil of Stender swept in, cleansing the cult's temple with fire and steel. Yet, in what I see as a final, chilling twist, the gate sigil stone was destroyed, not closed, leaving a gaping wound in reality, a doorway for Daedric forces that I fear may never truly shut. The legacy of the Mythic Dawn, it seems to me, is never quite over. In Tamriel, I've learned that some doors, once opened, are very, very hard to close. The commentaries on the Mysterium Xarxes are, at their core, what I consider the holy scripture of the Mythic Dawn, a tangled mess of prophecy, philosophy, and justification for the cult's world-ending ambitions. These texts, attributed to Mankar Camoran, supposedly date back to the time of Tiber Septim, over 4 centuries before the events of Oblivion, which, as I see it, doesn't add up at all, considering Mankar himself wasn't even born until 3E267, so how could that possibly work? My own pet theory is that after Mankar used Mehrunes' razor to rewrite his own Nymic, became Dragonborn, and got his hands on the Amulet of Kings, not to mention gaining the favor of the dragon god of Timon, he might have found a way to send the commentaries back through time. I can imagine him tapping into some time-bending sorcery. After all, if the ancient Nords could banish Alduin with an Elder Scroll, surely a man like Mankar could pull off something similar. Who really knows? But for me, it would explain how the cult had access to his revelations long before he was supposedly born. I just chalk it up to classic Elder Scrolls logic. Where there's a will and a powerful Daedric artifact, there's almost always a way. In the commentaries, Mankar spins what I can only describe as a grand and seductive narrative. He claims he received revelations directly from the Mysterium Xarxes, a book penned by Mehrunes Dagon himself. According to Camoran, the whole of Nirn Mundus, and even the cosmic Arbis, is being held captive by what he calls the Jailer Kings, the Edra. These gods, he argues, betrayed Lorcan and hijacked creation, locking mortals into a reality that I think he saw as stifling true freedom and spiritual growth. He frames the Edra's version of reality as a complete lie, a shackle designed to keep mortals from returning to the primordial dawn, a time before laws and limits, when all possibilities coexisted and the world was pure, unbridled potential. I see Mankar as urging his followers to cast off their loyalty to the 8 divines, the 8 times 8 exarchs, and even the Magnagi, especially Mimali, the blue star, because he believed these entities abandoned the quest for true godhood and left mortals trapped in a cosmic prison. Only Mehrunes Dagon, he promises, offers genuine liberation, a return to the dawn, and a paradise for those bold enough to embrace change and destruction to its ultimate end. For those who fall short or dare to stand in the way, it's my understanding that Camoran promises nothing but a hellish oblivion, to be consumed by the fires of Dagon. One of the wildest claims in the commentaries, in my opinion, comes near the end, where Mankar retells the mythic origin of Mehrunes Dagon. He speaks of Lig, which I interpret as a previous or parallel version of Nirn, ruled by tyrannical drug kings, monstrous, amphibious overlords who kept their oceans enslaved. In this world, he claims the Magnagi, the Starfins who fled creation, created Mehrunes Dagon in secret, imbuing him with hope and unleashing him as a revolutionary force. Dagon, in this telling, shattered the Drew King's dominion, breaking their towers and their world, freeing the oceans but leaving Lig a ruin, a cataclysm so profound that the sky split and day became night. This, Camoran declares, is the very blueprint for the Oblivion Crisis, to tear down the corrupt order of Tamriel and set the world free, even if freedom means burning it all to the ground. The commentaries also clearly borrow ideas from other legendary texts, like the 36 Lessons of Vivek, referencing the Drift as former world rulers and connecting figures like Molag Bal and Vivek's battles with the Ruddy Man. To me, it's a masterfully woven tapestry of myth, metaphor, and metaphysics, all designed to give the mythic Dawn's mission a sense of ancient, almost cosmic inevitability. Camoran's retelling of Dagon's origin casts him as a kind of Horus figure, a chosen destroyer meant to liberate and avenge, not just annihilate. Whether you believe any of this is, of course, up to you. Maybe I see it as divine truth. Maybe it's just wishful thinking on his part. Or maybe it's the most epic con job ever conceived to justify a world-ending crusade. In true Elder Scrolls fashion, I find the truth is always shrouded in mystery. But at least now you know my take on what's really written in the commentaries, and why so many, myself included, lose themselves trying to read between the lines. So, after everything we've covered about Mankar Camoran's wild journey, there's one question that I find always comes up. Was Mankar Camoran Dragonborn? The answer, weirdly enough, is no and also yes. In my firm opinion, he wasn't born a Dragonborn. There's absolutely nothing in his early life, his bloodline, or his original nature that would make him Dragonborn in the way that I see the Septims or the player character are. But later on, I believe he became Dragonborn not through birthright, but through a kind of metaphysical hackery, through what I can only describe as a classic mythic and a cosmic loophole. Mankar made himself into the very thing he wasn't. It's a paradox that I find brilliant in the timeline of events. He wasn't Dragonborn until he simply decided to be, but in the strange logic of Elder Scrolls reality, once he rewrote his Nymic and his fate, it's as if he always was. I know it sounds like peak nonsense, but let me explain how I think it works. From Book 2 of his Commentaries, he writes,
Offering myself to that daybreak allowed the girdle of grace to contain me. When my voice returned, it spoke with another tongue. After 3 nights I could speak fire.
My translation, by using the power of Mehrunes' razor and the forbidden knowledge of the Mysterium Xarxes, Mankar literally cut and reassembled his own existence. I believe he granted himself a new Nymic, a new destiny, and most crucially, a direct connection to Akatosh and the dragon blood. Book 3, I think, goes even further.
The dragon's blood have hidden ascension in 6,000 years of ethereal labyrinth. Take this key and pierce the divine shell that encloses the mantle takers.
Essentially, I believe Mankar is claiming he found a way to crack the code of Dragonborn status, and he proves it by pulling off the ultimate flex. Not only stealing the Amulet of Kings, but wearing it, an act that I know should be impossible for any non-Dragonborn. If you try to wear it without the right blood, it just slips off, but for Mankar, it sits there snugly, a perfect symbol of his newly forged power. Now, could it be that the Camorans are secretly an ancient Dragonborn bloodline and Mankar just activated something that was always dormant? The more likely answer, to my mind, is that by rewriting his Nymic and wielding Daedric power, Mankar simply made himself a Dragonborn. He changed his own destiny, and, for a time, bent the very rules of reality to his will. So the next time you see Mankar Camoran strutting around with the Amulet of Kings, I want you to remember, in the Elder Scrolls universe, the only real rule is that reality is as weird as you're willing to make it. In so many ways, I feel Mankar Camoran lives in a world of pure fantasy, a fever dream shaped by Dagon's influence, his own immense pride, and a level of madness that sometimes, I think, blurs into sheer genius. From his perspective, I'm convinced he isn't a villain at all. He is Tamriel's great liberator, the only one brave or unhinged enough to force real, fundamental change. Like any great antagonist, I truly believe he sees himself as the hero of his own story, and isn't that precisely what makes the best villains so utterly compelling to me? So when you, the hero, arrive to put an end to his plans, Mankar doesn't panic. I don't think he's surprised in the slightest. In his mind, everything is proceeding according to his grand vision. He's a demigod, destined to reshape Tamriel for what he sees as the better. But is Mankar really just delusional? Did the Mysterium Xarxes actually drive him insane? Or is there a twisted, undeniable logic to his vision? Let's try to unpack what I think he really believes. Mankar claims that Tamriel is the Oblivion realm of Lorkhan, and also calls it Mehrunes Dagon's birthright. Does that mean he thinks they're the same being? Maybe, maybe not. To understand where I think he's coming from, you have to look at Lorkhan, the god who tricked the other Ada into creating the mortal world. Lorkhan, as I understand the myth, convinced these godlike beings to pour their very essence into the mundus, birthing a world of suffering and mortality. When the others discovered his trickery, they literally tore him apart. In various cultures, I've noticed the pieces of Lorkhan's spirit show up as different gods like Shor, Shazar, Lorkaj, Sep, and others. The point is, Lorkhan's story is a beautiful mess that changes depending on who you ask. To Mankar, I believe Lorkhan isn't a villain at all. To Mankar, I believe Lorkhan isn't a villain at all. He's the original rebel, the divine revolutionary who was betrayed by the Edra, the jailer kings who now rule the world. In the cult's eyes and in mine, when I try to see from their perspective, the Edra are weak, clinging to the scraps of their lost power, while mortals worship them out of sheer habit. The Daedra, on the other hand, are eternal, undiminished, and unafraid of change. I think that's what draws Mankar and his followers so strongly to Dagon, the Daedric prince of destruction, change, and, yes, even hope. This worldview puts Tamriel in a strange position in my mind, stuck in a rut, led by fading gods, and desperately in need of a revolution. And who better to bring that revolution than Dagon, a force of chaos just as fundamental as Lorkhan was in his own time. Mankar's whole philosophy, as I see it, is built on this idea that Dagon is to Lorkhan what Lorkhan was to Padome, the next great phase of cosmic upheaval. But Mankar's madness, I think, goes even further. With the power of the razor, he didn't just rewrite himself. I believe he literally carved pieces from his own soul, giving rise to his children, Ruma and Raven, who act as living extensions of his will. His paradise is less a reward than a crucible, a reflection of his own cruelty and his warped devotion to Dagon's cause. Cultists who die there are tormented for eternity, and I've read that even his own lieutenants eventually turn against him, overwhelmed by the horror of what he has created. So, what about my take on the idea that Tamriel is Lorkhan's realm, or that Dagon is a fragment of Lorkhan's spirit? The commentaries flirt with these ideas, but I notice they never spell them out directly. Some theories I've seen suggest Lorkhan's shattered soul gave rise to new gods, including, possibly, Mehrunes Dagon. The Altmer tradition even supports the idea that gods can split off pieces of themselves to become new beings, so I don't think it's impossible. At the end of the day, I believe Mankar's ultimate goal isn't just destruction, it's rebirth. He wants to wipe the slate clean, clear away the distractions, and give mortals the chance to walk the walking ways, to eventually become gods themselves. He sees Nirn as stagnant, held together only by the towers, which I've noted are slowly being dismantled in the background of every Elder Scrolls game. As the world teeters on the brink of collapse, I see Mankar as simply giving it a push toward its next beginning. Is it all madness, or does he have a point? maybe I think a bit of both. The world of Nirn does seem strangely static, even as empires rise and fall. And as the old song says, every new beginning comes from some other beginning's end. So, is Mankar Camoran a raving lunatic, or a prophet I should consider ahead of his time? In the Elder Scrolls universe, I find the line between the two is always shrouded in mystery. So, to circle back, was Mehrunes Dagon misleading Mankar Camoran this whole time? Honestly, I don't think so. In my view, Dagon just isn't built for subtlety. Stupid. Might be a bit harsh, but let's be real, he's not some cunning trickster Daedra like Boethia or Mephala. He's the Prince of Destruction, blunt, direct, and in his own brutal way, refreshingly honest. This isn't just my take, either. Let's see what is said in the book Varieties of Daedra by Arania Drethan, where the legendary Telvanni wizard, Devaithfur, puts it perfectly in my opinion. Devaithfur told me that he, by choice, trafficked only with 2 Daedra powers, Mehrunes Dagon and Azura. Azura, he said, knew and understood all things, and declined to speak of these things or only spoke in riddles. Mehrunes Dagon, on the other hand, out of pride, fixity of purpose, and a predictable lack of subtlety in thought, knew nothing and understood nothing, and was inclined to speak freely and without falsehood. So, as I see it, Dagon doesn't really lie, he just is what he is. I don't believe he's trying to permanently turn Tamriel into the Deadlands. His entire goal, in my interpretation, is to burn it all down, level the slate, and let something new, and hopefully better rise from the ashes. Destruction, ambition, and revolution, that's the whole Dagon package, as far as I'm concerned. This vision of endless cycles of torment and rebirth. That's his paradise, Gyre Aleda. It's where I believe Mankar's followers are tempered, battered and remade through suffering, all so they can become the rulers of the next age. They aren't just victims in Mankar's twisted view, which I find horrifically fascinating. They're being forged into gods. To quote Mankar himself, which I think seals the deal,
Your reward, brothers and sisters. The time of cleansing draws nigh. I go now to paradise. I shall return with Lord Dagon at the coming of the dawn. Look now upon my paradise, Gyre Aleda in the old tongue. A vision of the past and the future. Behold the savage gardens, where my disciples are tempered for a higher destiny, to rule over Tamriel reborn. If you are truly the hero of destiny, as I hope, the garden will not hold you for long.
So were Mankar's followers misled? Maybe, but I don't think it was by Dagon, at least not intentionally. Everything is right there, spelled out in fire and blood for anyone to see. In the end, I believe Mankar's vision was a perfect match for Dagon's, total destruction, followed by a rebirth for those strong enough to survive it. Just as paradise is a preview for Tamriel's future, so too was Mankar's plan, brutal, uncompromising, and in its own way, almost honest. However, Gyre Aleda, what I see as Mankar's so-called paradise, met its end during the chaos of the Oblivion Crisis. With the Empire in flames, I know Camoran escaped with the Amulet of Kings, hiding away in his personal pocket realm. But Martin Septim, the lost heir, and, in my opinion, the most unlikely of heroes, pieced together the secret to entering paradise. With the right relics and the forbidden knowledge of the Mysterium Xarxes, he opened a portal, sending the hero of Kavach into Gyre Aleda for one final confrontation. Inside, I'm told the hero battled through Mankar's brutal vision of paradise, eventually defeating Camoran and reclaiming the amulet. With Mankar gone, his soul, I imagine, snatched up by Mehrunes Dagon. Paradise lost its anchor and simply faded from existence, erased as if it had never been. And here's the wild part for me, Mankar almost pulled it off. He was no mere cult leader. I see him as a master conjurer, a sorcerer whose plan unfolded with terrifying precision. He assassinated Emperor Uriel Septim VII and wiped out all his known heirs, opening the way for Dagon's invasion. I truly believe it all would have worked, except for one tiny, overlooked detail.
Have you brought help? We've been trapped here since the Daedra overran the city. The Emperor is dead. Who are you? What do you really want with me? Yes, I'm a priest. Do you need a priest? I don't think I'll be much help to you. I'm having trouble understanding the gods right now. If all this is part of a divine plan, I'm not sure I want to have anything to do with it. If you came to me for help, you're more of a fool than you look. Look around. What good is a priest? Emperor Uriel Septim? You think the Emperor is my father? No, you must have the wrong man. I am a priest of Akatosh. My father was a farmer. You spoke to the Emperor before he died? And he told you to find me? I don't know. It's strange. I think you might actually be telling the truth. What does this mean? What do you want from me? No. I'm sorry, but even if what you say is true, I won't abandon these people to their fate. I'll go with you when we can all leave here together. It isn't that I don't believe you, but I won't go with you until I know everyone can leave here safely. We've been through too much together already for me to just abandon them to their fate.
Enter Martin Septim, the Emperor's secret, illegitimate son, hiding in plain sight as a humble priest in Kvatch. I see a man with no interest in power, no designs on the throne, and yet fate, or perhaps the will of the Elder Scrolls themselves, placed him at the very center of history. The hero of Kvatch, guided by Baris and Camoran's own cryptic commentaries, hunted down the Mythic Dawn, stormed their hidden shrine, and recovered the Mysterium Xarxes. But Camoran still managed to flee into oblivion with the amulet.
You did not expect to see me again, did you? You have no grasp of the power that my father has at his command. You think you can stop us? Soon Mehrunes Dagon will walk upon Tamriel for the first time since the Mythic Age, and our victory will be complete. Come. My father is waiting to welcome you to Karak Agayalor.
So, here you are at last, the lackey of the Septim Pretender. You still think you have a chance, don't you? We knew you would find your way here eventually, but it is of no consequence. You should not keep my father waiting any longer. He expected you hours ago. Come, you came here to see him, did you not?
I have waited a long time for you, champion of old Tamriel. You were the last gasp of a dying age. You breathed the stale air of false hope. How little you understand. You cannot stop Lord Dagon. The walls between our worlds are crumbling. The mythic dawn grows nearer with every rift in the firmament. Soon, very soon, the lines now blurred will be erased. Tamriel and Oblivion rejoined, the Mythic Age reborn. Lord Dagon shall walk Tamriel again. The world shall be remade. The new age shall rise from the ashes of the old. My vision shall be realized. Weakness will be purged from the world, and mortal and immortal alike purified in the refiner's fire. My long duel with the Septims is over, and I have the mastery. The Emperor is dead. The Amulet of Kings is mine. And the last defender of the last ragged Septim stands before me, in the heart of my power. Let us see who at last has proved the stronger.
Thanks to what I can only call Martin's genius, they deciphered the path into paradise, allowing you, the player, to take the fight directly to Mankar's doorstep. Even as you corner him, Mankar stands unshaken. I have to admire that he genuinely believes he's the hero, that he's freeing Tamriel and forging a better future. Your arrival doesn't rattle him in the least. He accepts his fate, confident that he has played his part in the turning of the ages. Right to the very end, he proclaims his vision, absolutely convinced of his own divinity. But fate, it seems, had other plans.
I do what I must do. I cannot stay to rebuild Tamriel. That task falls to others. Farewell. You've been a good friend in the short time that I've known you. But now I must go. The dragon waits.
With Camoran defeated, Martin took up the Amulet of Kings and, in a final, breathtaking act of sacrifice, shattered it, transforming himself into an avatar of Apatosh to drive Mehrunes' Dagon back into oblivion. Martin's victory sealed the barrier between worlds, but I believe it came at a great cost. The amulet was destroyed, Martin was gone, and the age of Dragonborn emperors came to an end. The Oblivion crisis was over, but Tamriel, in my opinion, would never be the same. And as is always the case with the Elder Scrolls, the story lingers, half-closed doors, unanswered questions, and the memory of a madman who I know very nearly reshaped the world. To me, and I know I'm not alone in this, Mankar Camoran will always feel like one of Oblivion's greatest missed opportunities. For such a pivotal and fascinating villain, you only interact with him for the briefest of moments. He makes his grand, dramatic entrance, vanishes into myth and rumor, and then just pops up for a single, climactic showdown. I feel the game misses out on what could have been a far richer, more suspenseful unraveling of the cult's great mystery. The chase with Boris for clues about the Mythic Dawn. It's serviceable, I suppose, but let's be honest. It feels more like ticking off boxes than truly unraveling a grand conspiracy. Decoding the commentaries and heading to Green Emperor Way has a spark of mystery, but for me, it's one of the only parts that really feels like a genuine puzzle. I believe Morrowind handled this so much better, gradually immersing you in the information gathering and letting the sense of dread build over time. In comparison, Mankar's entire questline, and frankly, much of Oblivion's main plot, feels like a puzzle with half the pieces missing. It's a real shame, in my opinion, that Mankar didn't get more screen time, more dialogue, and a much deeper role in the story. I firmly believe he should have been the main antagonist for a much larger portion of the game. Just imagine if they'd kept him as a shadowy presence, letting his influence simmer in the background as he orchestrated the crisis with some grand ritual involving the amulet, instead of just dropping a single monologue on us before the final fight. But as a Daedric prince, I feel he's always bound to his cosmic nature. Mankar, by contrast, is fascinating to me precisely because he's mortal, flawed, ambitious, and utterly, unshakably convinced that he is right. The game treats him and Dagon almost interchangeably, and I think that's a profound loss. Still, the lore that surrounds Mankar is some of the most compelling in the entire Elder Scrolls universe. As far as I'm concerned, there's a whole community of fans out there who, like me, seriously consider his theory that Tamriel is an Oblivion plane, perhaps even Lorcan's own realm, tied to the Daedra to change, and to endless cosmic cycles. The more you dig into the logic behind the Mythic Dawn, the more you start to see its appeal. If I lived in Tamriel, sure, I'd probably steer clear of the whole eternal purgatory for me soul thing. But from a detached, cosmic perspective, Mankar's vision starts to feel less like madness and more like a grim, terrible necessity. He stands as a testament, a crack in the firmament of reality, a scar that proves the world can be broken. Though he failed to merge Nirn with the Deadlands, though his grand apocalypse fizzled out, the change he wrought was, in my eyes, undeniable. The Dragonborn Emperors are a memory, the Amulet of Kings is dust, the Third Era is over, and the Empire has fractured into something entirely new. Whether he intended it or not, Mankar restarted the cosmic cycle. He brought the principle of change, that raw, Padomaic chaos, back to a world that I believe had grown perilously stagnant. So was Mankar Camoran a villain? Or was he the instrument of change Tamriel so desperately needed? For me, that debate is never truly settled. His actions were a scream that shattered the world's slumber. And I believe we are still living in the echoes of its silence, forever marked by the man who saw paradise in the flames.
The amulet is shattered. Dagon is defeated. With the dragon's blood and the Amulet of Kings, we have sealed the gates of oblivion forever. The last of the Septims passes now into history. I go gladly, for I know my sacrifice is not in vain. I take my place with my father and my father's fathers. The Third Age has ended, and a new age dawns. When the next Elder Scroll is written, you shall be its scribe. The shape of the future, the fate of the Empire. These things now belong to you.